been with Health and Human Services for 9 years, and she's the health education teacher, so she will be our first speaker today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I provided a few handouts which I believe are out in the lobby, so feel free to grab those anytime. One of the things I do at Health and Human Services is manage something called the Community Linkages to Care grant. And through this grant, we provide individuals with post-overdose support and just other linkage to services. So someone might say, well, I think I might be ready for treatment, or I am ready. They can connect them with, when I say they, I mean our colleagues at Meridian. We work closely with them. They can connect the individual with an assessment or with treatment, often outpatient treatment. We actually have a good number of outpatient treatment options in the county. Locally, your residential treatment options are going to be more limited, but they can connect folks with those types of services. And we're finding that often folks they may refer themselves or refer a loved one. So we can get referrals for care from like law enforcement or EMS and other agencies, but sometimes people hear about the program and they connect with it themselves. So we at HHS, we're more the kind of administrative arm of the grant. We make sure that the supplies that participants need, like hygiene items and backpacks and gloves and things for this cold weather, that those things are made available. And our colleagues at Meridian focus on connecting them, again, with maybe the treatment resources and actually getting these supplies in their hands. So if they say, I really need a hairbrush and some shoes or that sort of thing, they'll connect them with the physical supplies or link them to the various services. And so that might be, making sure they get a food box or helping them sign up for Medicaid. It could mean getting them a transit pass so that they can get to their different appointments, or maybe they have a job so that they can get to that. But again, they will provide post-overdose support, so if we get a referral from law enforcement or someone else, then they'll follow up with that person and they'll offer services, whatever that person might be willing and open to receiving. They'll connect them with Narcan. Not everybody may be willing to accept a kit, but they will offer a kit. And so if somebody is using opiates or, with fentanyl, many things could be laced with an opiate. So it's important for that person and the person spending time around them to have a kit. And so they'll provide that. They also, again, will help them with transportation. So we get these 1 month unlimited passes to transit. And so if a person is regularly seeking services, they can give them that pass so the person can take advantage of the transit route. And so these flyers which are out there, they talk about the different things that are available. They have the phone number for the Meridian team. And so if you're trying to reach someone at Meridian, this number is a good number because this will go to someone's cell phone. It's not all the time. It tells the hours that you can reach them. And it's also got the mobile crisis number. So if someone is experiencing a substance use or mental health crisis, that you could call and get that assistance. And if you were to need assistance, maybe sooner than mobile crisis were able to arrive, then you would absolutely need to call 911. So those are just kind of some basics about what the program offers. And we're really excited to partner with a treatment provider. They're just a really natural fit to be able to link people with those kinds of services. And then also, the other handout I brought is a treatment resource sheet that one of our team members put together. So it's a nice, colorful, cherry-looking sheet, but it talks about different outpatient services, detox, crisis help, and medication-assisted treatment clinics. So if someone was wanting to get treatment for opiate use, get treatment such as methadone or Suboxone, tells different places that they could go and get that service. So those are really nice things to have on hand at the church. And I had also provided a few of our referral forms. So if someone, from the community or the church was seeking help, you can send over that referral form. They absolutely take community referrals, although referrals aren't needed to get help. Someone could simply call the number, for themselves. So kind of a basic rundown of what we do or what the program does. And although the money started out as, kind of opioid focused, we know that people may be struggling with multiple substances. It may not all be opiates. That you'll have more people go to the ER for alcohol-related issues, actually, than opiates when I pull those numbers. So, people may be struggling with any number of things, so. But any questions about kind of what the program does, or what I do, or?
Did you bring any of those, what you just showed?
Yes, I brought, there should be 29 of each of them because I printed 30. So yes. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Availability in our county, like, leave people in, I know there's a grant. Anyway, I work over in Buncombe.
Okay.
Is Narcan readily available to lay people or the public? How does that work?
If someone calls us or Meridian and asks, we'll do everything in our power to get them a kit. I mean, until the other day, I had a box full of them, but a partner requested some, and so I no longer have that box, but I'm working on getting a little bit more. So, yeah.
It is available.
It is available, and also, you can get it at a pharmacy through statewide standing order, so you don't need to have a prescription. Narcan will reverse an opioid overdose. Now, it's still important to call 911 because a person is going to go into withdrawal, and they also could have substances in their system that are other than opiates. The Narcan's not going to cause any harm to you. It just would not reverse other types of overdose besides an opiate overdose. So there are 3 ways. The type of kit that I usually have is the nasal kit. So it's just, you just squirt it up a nostril. It can also be administered intramuscular, which means an injection, just like a shot. Although I don't think you just have to give it through the arm. They're thinking stick it in maybe other places. Then there's one called the auto injector. That's not one most people are gonna have access to because it's rather expensive. It's a bit like using an EpiPen, and it actually talks to you. The device actually tells you what to do. But most likely you're gonna get either an injectable kit or an intranasal kit. The injectable one, just the syringe type, that's gonna be the least expensive. But yeah, I mean, if the church were to call and say, hey, we'd like to get a kit or 2, you know, we would work to help you do that. I'm out of my stash at the moment, but we would absolutely try to help with that. Other questions?
Do you have a lot of people doing this Suboxone?
I don't know how many people in the county get that type of service. The state has something called an opioid action plan dashboard, and when you go on there, you can look at the metrics and see how many people, you know, statewide or in various counties are getting treatment. So, no, I don't know like offhand, but
Thank you.
Suboxone and medication-assisted treatment like that is considered an evidence-based gold standard, and what it does is it helps the person not go into withdrawal. It's similarly to how you would take insulin if you had type 1 diabetes, because otherwise your body would crash. You would not survive. If a person is no longer using something that their body has become dependent on, this helps them not to be in withdrawal. It helps them to be able to go to work, go to school, take care of their family, function.
How long do they usually stay on that?
So people can be on it for a long time. The length of time somebody's on it varies, but
So they would still be withdrawal when they come off of that?
they would have to go off of it carefully. That would be a very, very careful process with a doctor's supervision. You wouldn't want to just go off of that because your tolerance for whatever substance you were taking has gone down,
Right.
and so the overdose risk has increased. So that would have to be a very careful process. Yes, ma'am.
Are they still using fentanyl in the medical profession, or have they just banned all that altogether?
I have no knowledge of it being banned, but it has a very careful, it's supposed to be a very careful, controlled use. It's not meant to just be,
Like morphine?
right, it's not meant to be used without careful medical supervision or without a prescription.
Gotcha.
So, at any rate, it should be used with caution, quite a bit of caution. But those types of medications initially, my understanding, were for treating cancer pain. So they're not necessarily, if you went into the doctor and had some procedure done, that's not the kind of thing they would prescribe you. Even if they prescribe you a narcotic, they would not prescribe you fentanyl for, dental pain or post-surgical pain or.
Is the street fentanyl, do the people make it in labs and that's why it's so dangerous? They don't get it from a pharmaceutical place, they make it.
That's not a question for me, probably.
I'm just curious how they get a hold of
Okay,
it.
we'll let him answer that in a minute. So I was more prepared to speak just about our program. I'm not as well versed in the specifics of fentanyl and illicit use of it, but again, it's meant for very, very careful, controlled use, if at all. That might be the best way to answer that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Randy Fugate, and we are real grateful that he's come. He's got a good presentation for us today. He has been in this field for 31 years, started out as an EMS for 15 years, and when he left, he was the EMS director. Now he's in Asheville, and he's the head of the Mobile Integrated Services. And I will let him take over.
Thank you. 31 years of paramedic. Wow. Where did that time go? Although I look very young.
Yes, that's right.
I'm glad Tam's recording this, that way they can distribute it to, well, whoever wants it. I'm very happy about that. Cold weather and fear of the flu. The flu's really getting something now again. Anyway, I taught opiate addiction, a monster in our communities. And I think the deputy would certainly agree that it's a monster, and and this is certainly not a Halloween thing, because this is all too real. A lot of tentacles, a lot of harm that comes from this monster. You can go ahead to the same next slide, Tim. So here's my disclaimer. I work for the health system in Asheville, and anything that we're talking about here is not endorsed by anybody. I teach for colleges and all that. A lot of this is my opinion and observation, and certainly a lot of experience that I've had over these many years that I've been blessed to do this work. And it shouldn't be considered medical advice at all. Go ahead, Tim. So what's an opioid? I mean, we see it on TV all the time. People laying in the streets of some of these cities. Terrible thing. And opioid medication. Opioids really come, and the deputy will be able to talk into something in the morning along the way, and like all these sources and how these things are flowing into our communities and our people. But opioids are a class of drug that derive from natural substances. Now they're also synthetics that are created in labs and all these illicit ways. It includes prescription meds and illegal drugs. And the reason that they are used is for either a analgesic effect to reduce suffering. And yes, ma'am.
Can't hear you, you're away from the microphone.
I'm so sorry.
You can use the handheld if you want, Randy.
Pardon?
You can use the handheld if you want. Behind you. Behind you.
Well, these 31 years have caused me not to be able to see that back there very well.
He can't hear you, honey.
Yeah, I'm okay. We'll figure it out. So common uses of the opiates, legal uses of them, that is, include post-surgical pain, severe pain relative to illness or injury, certainly some disease process. Also coughing. If you've had upper respiratory infection, oftentimes you can be prescribed those to reduce some of that pain. It's really important that you be able to cough and move those secretions out of your lungs, lest we develop pneumonia. and also diarrhea. There are preparations that are given to treat diarrhea. Go ahead, next slide. These are kind of the common ones that most of us are familiar with: oxycodone, oxymorphone, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, dilaudid, fentanyl, morphine, codeine, methadone, tramadol. And tramadol wasn't, I don't admit the deputy would have to speak to how long it's been classed as a narcotic, but it used to be, even in recent history, very widely prescribed and rather recklessly prescribed also. Morphine, and then of course we have the illicit substances and heroin being at the front of the line there. Go ahead, Tim. So how bad is this? I mean, we see the news and we hear the stories and we see the ambulances running back and forth, and how bad is it? Well, since 1999, you can see on the screen there, the better part of 1 million people have died from drug abuse. Now, not all these have been from opioids, probably on the order of 75%, I would guess. Interestingly and sadly, tragically, since 2020, 69,000 people were killed in the U.S. By opioids. Get your head right, 69,000 souls. And really, this, it is my opinion that this number is an underestimation by probably 2/3. It's probably way more, maybe by a fourth. Anyway, North Carolina opioid deaths, and I found this to be rather shocking. And having worked through the early stages of the pandemic, and you could see 2019, 2020, we got the pandemic, and we also had a 40% increase in opioid deaths that really hit at the same time, and it was awful. I mean, the number of people that EMS at times were going and picking up 6, 8, 10 people a day. Now, not all of them died, but there were many days that 10 people a day came into the ERs, even over here in Haywood. And I can't tell you what that statistic is, but it was a lot, and it's still a lot. So in 2020, 3,304 people died in our state, and that's not nine people a day, 9 souls a day lost to opioid overdose. So these statistics are what they are. These are great, but opiate addiction affects our nation in a lot of different ways. Suffering of families, and I can speak to that to some degree, first person. The harm that occurs from opiate addiction, it's not just the person that's using the opiate, it's the people that love them, and the community care about them, and law enforcement tries to keep everything straight, the doctors that try to, it affects all of us. We'll talk more about that in a minute. It affects all of us, whether you and I can't tell you how long it's been since I talked to a person that didn't know somebody directly, or that in some way had been affected by a person suffering from addiction issues. Certainly the increased cost, clogging up the ERs, you keeping ambulances and law enforcement very, very busy. There's a population-wide risk of disease transmission, particularly from HIV and hepatitis and other blood-borne diseases, and I would also add to that tuberculosis in some of the communities is really, particularly the bigger metropolitan areas like Atlanta, really becoming a problem again, and has been for some time. Go ahead, Tim. So how do we get here? And it really is it compassionate caregivers, or is it criminals? We got these guys taking care of the criminal side of that if we help them. Pharmaceutical companies, I think, clearly they want to make money, but I think by and large that they're well-intentioned people trying to provide a product that's useful, that can deliver what they say it'll deliver in the way that they say they'll deliver it, and it'll help people not suffer and help them heal and become better. There are most, virtually all healthcare providers, I believe, to be ethical and well-intentioned and using these preparations, these medications, the way that they're supposed to be used. And then on the other side, we have the unethical folks, certainly in business and anywhere else, and just like, it's just human nature, really. But anywhere else, they'll try to have ill-gotten gain in one way or another. Certainly, the news is full of unethical healthcare providers, doctors that were just they had a stack of prescription pads this high and handing out prescriptions left and right for these things. And then sadly but true, the folks that profit off this, the current criminal drug distribution, it's bad. I mean, these folks will be able to tell you. But so unintentional addiction, let's see, get bear with my poor eyes. So they've been prescribed this, and this is kind of a rhetorical slide. They've been prescribed these medicines to help. Sadly, some of these folks, they develop dependency. They don't know what they don't know. There is research, and if it's not on this slide, there's research that illustrates about somewhere on the order of half the people that have what's called a genetic predisposition. They don't know that they're genetically predisposed, and some of them have never received a narcotic pain medicine or an opiate pain medicine up until they do, for whatever reason. They fall and break something, or have whatever reason, and then they're administered these medications. And you can't really see it in the red there, but physical dependence on these medications can happen in just a few days. It's not on the slide, and I can't cite the source, but in conversation with my physician friends, it's generally accepted that somebody any of us that receive a narcotic pain medicine for more than 5 to 7 days, there is a risk, and I can't cite statistically what that risk is, but there is a risk of you developing developing physical dependency to these things.
Wow.
And that should give us all pause to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we shouldn't use these medications or we shouldn't take them as directed. We just need to go carefully into that good night. As many as 1 in 4 people receiving prescription opioids can develop a long-term addiction to them. Go ahead, Tim. And this really the family, and it's cited on the bottom of the slide there that I think it was the Family Health Institute. This is the one where they say that siblings of folks with narcotic addiction issues, or any addiction issue really, as you can see, really are at risk of developing dependency on these things, but solely based upon their genetic makeup. And again, they don't know what they don't know. Go ahead, Tim.
Right.
Hidden dangers, and EMS, and certainly law enforcement, I'm sure would agree, you find people with narcotic pain meds that aren't theirs. They don't have a prescription for them. They have a bottle of somebody else's name, or the pills of somebody else's name. Not all those folks are really a part of the criminal element. They are, here, Meemaw says, your back's hurting, here, take a couple of these. That's a family, isn't it? Anyway, taking medications that aren't prescribed to you, a person's prescription ran out, there's a reason that these things are time limited. Again, harkening back to the idea that we develop this dependency. Again, taking somebody else's medicine, don't do that. Don't be loaning yours to anybody. And really, there are serious implications, like where I work in commercial trucking and all these other different disciplines, and probably where you work too. You're subject to a random drug screening. If you're prescribed that medicine for every how many days, and it's time limited on that, you're not supposed to be taking that medicine 5 months from now. And like for us, it has to be a current prescription. Otherwise, it's not an authorized thing. You should not be in your system. It is my belief the same holds true in like commercial trucking and all those things. You have to have a reason and be able to illustrate why you have the medicine in your system. Go ahead, Tim. It's victim versus villain. And are the people out in the street that are addicted to this and laying around, you know, that you see or you see on the news or TV, are they victim or villain?
Mm.
But we have to decide that in some kind of way. We really do. I mean, I myself have used some of these hateful terms over the years, and it just out of ignorance more than anything. But are they a dope head or a tweaker or any of 100 other things? Are they somebody suffering an addiction? And I'm not saying that they don't bear responsibility for their addiction, or at least some responsibility for their addiction. But I don't know that the labels help.
That's right.
I don't know that we're going to gain anything unless we're in a formal way communicating a clinical condition or something. I don't know that it really helps to put these people in a box and stick a label on the outside of it, because where are we shipping them to? Nowhere. All of us know the term tough love, and I've said it, I've heard it, I've been lectured about it, I've seen some of it work out okay, I've seen a whole lot of it not. I think about tough love, like, and it doesn't do it justice, but like throwing a kid into 12 feet of water and telling them to swim or drown. Some of these people won't drown if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now that doesn't mean we dismiss personal responsibility, but it doesn't mean that they aren't held accountable for legal matters. And that doesn't mean that they just get away with anything they want to do because, oh, poor pitiful them. It is oftentimes poor pitiful them because they are a victim of addiction. Still need to be accountable, but they also need to be accountable and supported. Go ahead, Tim. Remember that person suffering from addiction, they remain a person worthy of our respect and our love and empathy and a carefully orchestrated approach. And what our friends from the HHS, the work that they do is, I mean, what you were talking about, it's a lot bigger than what she spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
Their support and the things that they're doing in the background, EMS, a lot of us couldn't do what we do without the things that they really are in many ways unsung heroes of this. And it is a war, right? It's a war on this ugly monster. But these folks they're there every day with policies and support, a lot of grant stuff. It's amazing what they do. And nobody even, except the ones that in the industry, if you will, knows they even exist in many cases. But they are worthy of our respect too. Anyway, I get off on a tangent. Remember, there's still somebody, and if we support them, they have a chance. It ain't our job to judge them, you know. And of course, we're in church. The judge we have in our mind who the ultimate judge is, and we also, legally speaking and societally speaking, we know who the judges are.
Mm-hmm.
We can be careful, we can be cautious, but we still be compassionate and help these folks. Go ahead. What can we do? I'm almost done. I'll hush. What we work together. There's a lot of people and a lot of organizations. You hear about them all the time, and certainly the HHS is in that list, if not at the head of that list. Collaboration. If any meaningful anything is going to happen, we're going to work together, or it's not going to work. As individuals, faith-based organizations, it is shocking how much is done in Western North Carolina. I'm all over the Western 22 counties all the time. It's shocking how much is being done by the churches to try and help, to feed them, to clothe them, to help with treatment, to help direct them into counseling, to help do lots of things and connect the dots that make a difference. Healthcare, certainly physicians, hospitals, EMS, you live in Haywood County, I can't say enough good about them. You are blessed to live in Haywood County. They are wonderful. EMS, the fire departments, and certainly law enforcement over here are amazing people to work with. And I've spent a long time working with them. Law enforcement in the courts, contrary to what the national narrative and the hateful ugliness that we see on the not in any law enforcement, they're on the front lines. They are the front line, and they're standing in that gap between like really bad people making money off of this, and then all these terrible things that happen, the crime, the theft, the murders, the prostitution, the human trafficking, the child abuse. These guys are standing in the gap trying to stop the flow of this stuff and to stop the misdeeds of those that are affected by these things. And they don't need to be hearing how we hate them and how they're blessed, because not. It's amazing what they accomplish. And they just keep doing it. They just keep on doing it. And I'm grateful. I am grateful that you keep putting on the uniform and you keep going out there. What y'all don't see and what the public don't see is the love that they carry forth from them, and the kindness. Oh my gosh, you just don't understand the kindness. That person is addicted and that season they're fighting or doing whatever they're doing. Law enforcement's there to help, not hurt, and they do every day. We just have to honor those folks and understand the work that they're doing is hard. It is so much more difficult than what we in EMS or fire or a lot of other disciplines do, because they're there and typically there first. We just have, and I know I'm getting back on the soapbox. Look, for 31 years I've seen what they do, and it's amazing, and they do it every day without a whole lot of things. So be sure and remember this. We need to work with political figures too, even if we have to hold our nose sometimes and do it. We have to work with them, because they're going to set the policies and they're going to provide the funding or direct the funding. Go ahead, Tim. So what we're going to do, we're going to be ready to provide support, whether that be direct support or these other things I talked about, to government and private folks, to healthcare personnel. Again, I can't say enough to law enforcement. Support them and embrace what they're doing and the importance of it, because something's got to happen to stop the flow of this stuff. Something's got to change. When it's coming into the country by the truckload or the plane load or being manufactured here, something's got to help, because this is real. A lot of people are dying from this, and exponentially more suffering, including us. We just may not feel it. Go ahead, Tim. Be ready to have uncomfortable conversations, and some of the things on this slide may not be comfortable for you. Medication-assisted treatment programs work. They work. I see it every day. Getting people on these medications with the right kind of counseling and the right kind of accountability, it works. And I worked some with Bunkum EMS, and they got a really innovative program over there in harm reduction where they are able to engage early, Suboxone early connection. It's been very successful at getting some of those suffering addiction into and remaining in care, in a care setting. Again, you may agree, you may disagree, but the fact is that it does, and oftentimes reduce harm. Other things, and I realize there's a lot of political rhetoric about needle exchange programs and those kind of things. I can't really speak to statistically how that works. It seems intuitive that it would reduce like hepatitis and HIV and like bloodborne pathogen things. But I also know that there's a lot of discussion about those things laying around and all that. I just can't speak knowledgeably about how much that's helping, but emotionally I believe that it does. We need to support treatment facilities. Nobody wants a treatment facility in their backyard, do they? Nobody wants a halfway house or a recovery center in their backyard. It's got to be in somebody's backyard.
That's right.
They got to be somewhere. At least be open to the idea that it might someday have to be yours, or close down the street or whatever. Be open to the idea. and do what you can. Go ahead, Tim. She talked about Narcan, and we have the ability to dispense Narcan. You don't have to have a prescription for Narcan as a layperson. It is my opinion, and only my opinion, what I'm about to say. Every church in this county ought to have 4 of these things in them that stays and date all the time. I mean, like if you have a defibrillator, one of those automated defibrillators, the things that I think you should have, and it's just me, you should have a defibrillator, you should have tourniquets, you should have things to stop bleeding, because it's not craziness, shootings, and all that. You should have Narcan, but because Narcan doesn't like cure them. Narcan, all Narcan does, at least in this context, is hopefully preserve their respiratory status long enough for an ambulance to get to you. It interferes with the receptor sites in the brain that take up these narcotics. It disrupts that and allows them to start breathing again. I've given Narcan many times. I've given it IV. I've given it with, and this the nasal injector that you see on the screen is the most common one now. That's what's provided on the grants, that I've seen anyway. It's very easy to do. You stick it up their nose, and yeah, there's some risk of them waking up and being all upset, or even having a seizure from withdrawal, whatever. But that risk is nowhere near as serious as not breathing, because it's not breathing key right now. Go ahead, Tim. Just last few slides here. Get and handle these medications. Maybe Dept, you're a lieutenant, aren't you?
Sir.
You a lieutenant or captain?
Yes.
Huh? I'll call him a deputy. Lieutenant. Please forgive me. The lieutenant can probably speak more on how this should happen, but you can't just be throwing your unused narcotics and really any medicine. You can't be throwing stuff in the trash. It's just, do you not think those that suffer addiction issues comb through the trash? Of course they do. You see it on TV and see it on the street. You see it comb through the trash. You can't be throwing these things. I mean, treat those like hazardous material, like chlorine or anything else that would be disposed of. It's got to be done the right way. There are pharmacies, again, I don't have a good solid information, but online there is safe disposal instructions and how you're supposed to get rid of these things. Part of the problem with these things, again, is folks gain access, and sadly children do too. They spilled out and dropped on the street by a garbage truck or whatever, and there's overdoses every year where people accidentally got hold of these things. Go ahead, Tim. Don't flush them down. Don't flush them down the toilet. Another problem we're having in the country, and it's not just opiates, it's antidepressants and all kind of other medicines are showing up in the water systems and the groundwater even now, because there's so much of this stuff, and particularly with lithium, although not a narcotic. There's these lithium levels in some areas are really high because there's just so many people that are flushing these things, and it's going through the body and being processed into sanitary sewer systems, and the lithium levels are just going crazy. So we can help by getting rid of things that in the right way, where it's contained and goes to either a hazardous waste landfill or whatever how it needs to be dispensed of. But you can find resources for that. A lot of pharmacies will have, and I know law enforcement occasionally will have these drums where people can bring unused medicines and throw them in there, and then it's taken to a hazardous waste landfill. Go ahead, Tim. So last 3 slides here. When we're approaching these folks, although we don't know them, we probably know somebody like them. We might see that person in the mirror. We're all at risk. Remember who they are. They're a human being, worthy of our love, or kindness, or compassion. Again, I don't mean they're worthy of not having any accountability for their actions. It's not true. Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead, Tim. There's a slide in between there and there. We want to remember who we are. Whenever you look in the mirror, who are you every morning? Who are you? Who you want to be? Now go ahead, Tim. Then we gotta figure out who we wanna be. As we join law enforcement, public health, and all these other folks to try and help with this, we gotta decide who we wanna be. We wanna be like the person that just turns a blind eye to it, or dismisses it as just another dope head laying in a ditch, or we wanna be somebody that helps figure this out, help support law enforcement when they try to disrupt this nonsense and this horrible scourge on our country. We want to support them, and when they're being disparaged, we want to say, hang on a minute. Hang on just a minute, slow your roll here. Did you know they're doing this and this and this and this? Oh, by the way, they're not getting rich. Are you? You.
Me? No, I'm not.
Yeah, the villains are very much getting rich, sadly. We just gotta decide who we wanna be too. And hopefully, you know, that y'all and the ones that see this and the recording, we gotta figure it out. And you can reach out to the sheriff. The sheriff's office is wonderful. Police departments, reach out. Just call somebody up and say, hey, what can we do to support you? Go to city council or county board meetings and things like that. Don't go to complain, go to offer help. They've already heard the complaints, they got it, they know. How can we fund law enforcement better? Can we fund EMS? Can we fund this? Can we fund the program better to disrupt this? We are not hateful our way out of this. We might be able to love and kindness our way out of it. Again, with the tenets of accountability and responsibility. That's all I gotta say about that.
I have a question.
Randy,
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
she has a question.
I have a question. Does Narcan help people besides being overdosed? And is it overdosed on every medication?
Narcan is and I think Megan mentioned earlier, Narcan is specific to interfering with the uptake or the receptor sites, the opioid receptor sites in the brain. Narcan interferes with that. It blocks those receptor sites. So it doesn't work like if it's like Valium, for example, a benzodiazepine, it doesn't do anything for somebody that's overdosed on Valium.
But it's not gonna hurt them either.
Well, that's right, and that's a really good point.
So if you had a heart attack and couldn't breathe, that wouldn't help you to breathe.
No, it wouldn't.
It's
That
just
hurt
opiates.
It wouldn't hurt you, but now, let's bear in mind, if a person falls out, we don't know if they're having and a heart attack or the reason that they're down. If it's known that they have the possibility of being opiate addicted or having been exposed to it. One thing I failed to mention, and I should have mentioned, that another big hazard with all of these things is these unintentional exposures that happen to EMS, law enforcement. I mean, you hear it every day. I don't remember where it was. There were 3 officers that ended up in the hospital last week in one of the bigger cities because they were exposed to fentanyl, I guess powder.
Wow.
Some of them, I mean, these guys didn't, but some of them died. It's a big deal.
Wow.
But no, I mean, there are other medications to disrupt those, like benzodiazepines, but those aren't distributed to the public.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Randy. And next we have Lieutenant Craig Campbell, and he's been in the law enforcement for 19 years, and he is with the Criminal Suppression Unit and Narcotics Department here. So I will turn the floor over to him.
Thank you guys for being here today. And like I said before, I'm going to, I'll give you a brief rundown, but I function best in the question and answer time. So, like I said, my name's Lieutenant Craig Campbell. I'm with the Criminal Suppression Unit of the Haywood County Sheriff's Office. I've been there approximately 19 years. I just recently we have, our Criminal Suppression Unit consists of 2 3-person teams, a sergeant, a deputy, a K-9 unit, plus 2 narcotics detectives. That's just at a minimum. We have other folks that help us from time to time, and I recently came off one of those teams and are over all of those now. We do a lot of good work. We've seen fentanyl has been around for a long time, but this year it has become, I don't have the exact statistics as far as, I don't want to bore you with meth or other drugs that we typically seize, but fentanyl has worked its way up to number 2 on our list that we seize. And just to give you a reference, when we talk about drug traffickers, the level of methamphetamine that you have to possess to become charged with drug trafficking is 28 grams, where the level of fentanyl that you have to possess to be a drug trafficker is 4 grams. So you can see the difference. If you just want to use that as a point of reference, it's 7 times worse. And then, like I said, that's just a point of reference. Now, as far as addictiveness and the deadliness of it, it is far worse than anything else that we deal with, because I mean, all these other drugs will ruin your lives, but the fentanyl will kill you. So, and I really like the phrase that Randy used. It is something that I've thought about. I didn't have it in exactly those words, but the victim or villain mentality. We will hold the victims accountable. That is what we do. But I am not after the victims. We are after the villains, the people that prey on them and that make money off them, and just, like I said, anyone that says drugs are a victimless crime, that is the furthest thing from the truth. Absolutely the furthest thing, because every person, including the victim, within a 360-degree span of them is a victim from their behaviors in one way or the other. Their kids, their parents, their brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, everyone does suffer from what they're going through, and the villains just profit off of it. They are making an immense amount of money, an immense. What we do is the criminal enforcement on the drug side. I mean, we're a criminal suppression unit, but almost everything points back to drugs, almost all of it. The most recent FBI statistic that I saw, I believe it was approximately 85% of all crime is either the person is on drugs, the crime is for drugs, or the crime is drugs. So in one way, shape, or form, it almost all leads back to that in one way or the other. In addition to our narcotics detectives, one of them is a task force officer with the DEA on a federal level, so we have some more resources available to us because of that. Like I said, our canine is doing an excellent job as far as helping us detect illegal drugs. And I can give you a few numbers here. I don't have this year's as far as total drug arrests, but in 2019, we made 611 drug arrests. 2020, 859, and 2021, 874. And I can tell you this year, it has been busier than the last. So, and as far as like money seized, 2019, we seized $63,000, 2020, $102,000, and 2021, $119,000, but it's just gone up. And as far as opioids in general, including opioids, heroin, and fentanyl, in 2019, we made 300 arrests. 2020, 267. It jumped back up in 2021, 296. But like I said, I don't have an official number, but on a federal level, on a nationwide level, and on a local level, we have seen fentanyl rise from down here, and it's almost equal to methamphetamine, and it's probably, I foresee it passing it here in the next little bit as far as what we seize. And of course, as far as overdoses, it's by far in the lead. Like I said, these other drugs will harm you and ruin your life, but the fentanyl will absolutely kill people. So, numbers as far as, I did this year so far. I went through our system, and just to give you an idea, so far this year, and this number is actually probably a little bit low, we have seized 312 grams of fentanyl so far this year. That's 11 ounces, 11.3 ounces. And I know Randy can tell you as far as the dosage, that is an immense amount. The DEA lists the typical dosage as a 1/16 of a gram. If you multiplied that out, that would be a little over 5,100 grams, dosages that we've seized, but I believe that number is inaccurate. I think that 1/16 of a gram is a little bit high. It's a lot high. You could easily multiply that by 3 or 4. We could have seized up to 20,000 dosages. I just don't know, because, like I said, this stuff isn't controlled. It's like, I know you were asking the question as far as where it derives from and as far as pharmaceutical grade. I think we saw that for a little while. We saw the pharmaceutical grade, and we saw people they would cut up the patches and they would chew on the patches, and that time has kind of come and gone because those patches are time released. I think it's 24 to 48 hours, I think is how they were released. I don't know whether anybody else has the numbers, but they would cut them up and of course chew on them, then you get it directly, but that time has kind of come and gone. And now we're seeing almost everything we're seeing either comes in from Mexico or China. So it's made in the lab overseas or out of country, and that's how it's getting in. It's not that they're diverting it from necessarily false prescriptions or getting it from other people that were rightly prescribed it, because it's very, very limited in use. And in one of the handouts, I think the DEA handout that I gave you guys, it shows like the origins of it, when it started off, and it is meant for very, very limited use in a very controlled setting. So any abuse of it is well outside the limits. And that one handout where it shows the penny, that's a typical use. That is not nearly a 1/16 of a gram. That's probably 1/100th of a gram that's in that picture. So just see how little it takes for someone to overdose it's a very minimal amount. Like Randy was saying, as far as the accountability, we are not doing anyone any favors if we do not hold the victims accountable, because a lot of times they just want to get out of the moment. They don't want to be caught, and yes, it's terrible that they're caught, but that brings it to the forefront, and now they have to face it, and they have a decision at that point. Do they want to keep going down that road, or do they want the help? We offer them the help. We offer to get them in contact with people that can't help them.
Yep.
Because ultimately, I don't want to have to do that again. That's my goal. Hold them accountable once, hopefully we can get them down the right path and not have a second time. Unfortunately, that's not the way it is, but I have seen it happen. But like Randy said, not everyone is a villain. We have a lot of victims, but the victims, they're preyed upon by the villains. So if I have left anything out, I apologize, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
I have 2 questions.
Mhm.
They're kind of related. The first question is, what is the attraction of fentanyl? And second would be, how do people generally come into contact with it? How are they introduced to it intentionally? I know there's a lot of unintentional exposure.
I would think that the attraction of fentanyl is the price. People typically have an opioid addiction, and as they really started cracking down on the prescription of opioids, because like you said, they were recklessly prescribed. And so some people were uninformed, or they were misled about the addictiveness of it. It was overprescribed. It created a whole issue that we're still having to deal with that now. but they have since, dramatically restricted the prescribing of it. Therefore, when you reduce supply, the demand is still there, price goes up. Heroin was a cheaper option for a long time, and as they started making this fentanyl overseas, and it was becoming easier to get into the country for them to smuggle it in, the price obviously has come down on the fentanyl, and it's just cheaper. So, and it's, I think the numbers are, fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin. So therefore, you could divide whatever amount that you have by 50 and equal 1-to-1 for the heroin that people were using to supplement the opioids. And it's 100 times more powerful than morphine, if I have my numbers correct. So you see the potency of it. If you bring in an ounce that's that big, by the time you divide it out, you can distribute it to so many people. The money is outrageous for these people, and that's the prime motivating factor for the drug dealers, is money.
How many grams did you say y'all was in?
So far, it's probably low because of the reporting. 312.6 is what I came up with. Grams.
So in each gram, I had to do the math on here,
Mhm.
because I'm terrible at math. But in each gram, there's 1 million micrograms, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the right math?
I believe so.
When I administer fentanyl in an ambulance, it's 50 micrograms. That's a lot. I mean, granted, the illicit dosing is far different, I'm sure, than what
Yes.
we do. But just for a matter of comparison, we get 50 mics of fentanyl, and you see 312
Grams.
million, 312 million micrograms.
Yes. I guess if you divide that by 50, you have a dosage right there in the medical.
There you go.
Yeah. We've gotten a lot.
That, I mean, it's irrefutable that lives are saved by that CT.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just last week, like I said, we had a large scale operation. It hasn't come out yet as far as like in the paper. It'll come out next week. But just off one stop last week, we seized over 34 grams out of one stop. So, and it's in those numbers, like I would say 312 grams, we had 14 of those were trafficking charges, which hold some serious time. I'm not talking about just personal use where the court system can work with them and they'll get some sanctions. I'm talking people that were clearly distributing these drugs for profit. They will do a mandatory 70 to 93 months. We had 14 of those, some of which will hold over 20 years sentence because of the amount that they had. So we have done okay so far. Per capita, we do pretty well as far as our enforcement.
To I guess Tim's question about why the attraction to fentanyl, I think for the narcotic dealers, and this is conjecture on my part.
Yeah, now as far as like the attraction, I don't have the best answer for that.
But
I
they
don't-
can move a lot more of it, they can move a lot more of it, they need to
Because of the size.
It's 100 times more powerful than morphine.
And if you had, a lot of this stuff is so diluted, they cut it with other agents, so they just multiply out their profits even more. It's unreal what some of these dealers are making, and the majority that we seize here have come from east of here. It comes in from east in Haywood County. Some of it comes from west, but the vast majority comes east, from the east side. So, any other questions? I have a lot of answers.
I don't have a question, but I just wanna tell you that I'm sure everybody else appreciates you coming and talking about
Oh,
this.
yes, it's
I
my
am a
pleasure.
Facebook user. Sometimes I get in Facebook jail for stuff I put on. So, I wanna tell you, thank you for when you share things, because the fentanyl thing that you shared that a few years ago, showed a picture and put it on Facebook. And it really shook me up when I
Mhm.
saw it, because I thought, go into grocery stores and you handle the cards. After that, I started making sure I took cleaning to before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
because of what you put on Facebook. So use Facebook, it gets shared,
Oh, yeah.
you know, thank you,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
appreciate it.
It's a good way to distribute information.
And,
Facebook is.
Is it mostly the powder that they're, buying, or
Yes.
is it in a pill form? Cause we see a lot of the pills.
The pills are usually compressed, but they compress it together to make it look like another pill, and that's usually just for transportation. So they can get it from one place to another and not lose it, not spill it. They may disguise it as something else. That's typically for transportation. If
So,
someone
should we
took
worry
one of
about
those,
candy? Should be worried about it being on children's candy after.
I mean, anything is possible, but it's unlikely because of the tremendous value of it to these people. Unless they just misplace some, that's not an issue. They're not going to distribute it out because one of those pills will almost 100% be fatal. One of those compressed pills. So that's not how they're being taken. It's how they're being transported. So,
Narcan won't reverse that.
no.
You don't have enough Narcan to reverse that.
See, that's the thing. Narcan can only do so much, and I've seen sometimes where these people have been administered Narcan several times. Because, like Randy said, it's really just interrupting what is happening. It's interrupting the overdose, and depending on how much they've taken, it's got a time limit, and then you've got to administer it again to interrupt it, and sometimes there's not enough. So.
Are they taking it for being on high or just when they buy it on the street?
It is all, I guess, or at least started off as searching for a high, and then the body develops an addiction rather quickly, and then it's kind of it's a terrible cycle at that point. Terrible cycle.
There's a widely accepted phrase out there among the drug dealing, almost said scumbags, but, the drug dealers that try to, the first dose is always free.
Mm-hmm. And they're chasing that feeling again.
That just illustrates how addictive they are. I mean,
Oh gosh, yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
on the news that, just different little snips of it, that since Halloween's coming up, to make sure you watch the children's candy. How is it getting into that, and is that really a big issue?
There was a news article came out the other day where they found a lot of compressed fentanyl pills in some candy wrappers and boxes and stuff, and I feel confident that was for transportation. That's
Oh, okay.
they're, I mean,
I heard her ask a question, but I
Yeah,
didn't understand what she was saying. Okay.
it's just because of the extreme value. They have no motivation to do that unless you just ran into a pure evil person that wanted to harm someone. But I mean, like I said, anything's possible, but it's not very probable. I think that was for transportation, so they could get it from one point to another, and if they saw it, oh my gosh, it's a box of candy, nothing to worry about, because they're sealed up. I mean, and a lot of these people will take, legitimate products and reseal them. Take out the product, put another product in, and reseal them. And we found it here, not necessarily the candy, but we found other products that have been resealed with illegal drugs in them. It does happen. So, but I wouldn't think that would be a terrible concern. Obviously, always be careful. Always check the kids' candy because you just don't know. But I don't think that would be, likely. But always check it. Always check mine. Always check my kids' candy, no matter what.
if it don't look right, throw it in the trash.
I'm sorry.
If it doesn't look right, throw it away.
Just throw it away. Go buy more. Candy's cheap.
It'll be on sale the next day.
Yep, it'll be on sale. If it doesn't look good, throw it away.
That's a good point.
Go to Walmart, get them some more.
Yeah, I hope I'm sealed up at Walmart this morning, it's good.
Yeah.
That's true,
And-
after Halloween, they'll be too.
Thank you again, you've had my back for a very,
Oh,
very
yes.
long time.
That's, like Randy said, you don't realize how much EMS and the fire departments do. Most people have no clue.
That's right.
I've seen some people that you would absolutely swear this was going to be a fatal overdose. And 20 and 30 minutes of hard work, these people start coming back around, and it's absolutely amazing. And it's hard work. And it's not one person, it's 3 or 4 working constantly to bring this person back. And I mean, obviously, they're not miracle workers. There's some that you can't bring back, but I've seen some amazing things happen. So they work very hard.
Wow.
And like I said, we are on the tough love side. We'll hold them accountable. Now the victims, or the villains, we're gonna go further. I don't necessarily have a whole lot of compassion for the villains, but the victims we do.
Mm-hmm.
But you got interrupted early so they don't continue on. I don't wanna see them become a villain.
Exactly right.
I don't know whether I left anything out, but if you have any other questions.
From your perspective and law enforcement, what would you like to see churches do? There's 200 plus churches in Haywood County. What would you like the churches to do to help combat this?
Did you say purchase or service?
Churches.
Churches. Just make more awareness. There are many services that need assistance, and unfortunately, most of the assistance comes with a financial price tag. These services need some backing.
Yep.
And obviously, you can't help every single one that's worthy, but pick one that you guys feel is worthy, or two, and help them out. Think about it, research it, and help them that way, because that's what they need. These products cost money, these facilities cost money, the light bill costs money at these places. The doctors, as much as they want to volunteer, they still have to have a life. They still have to have a home. They still have to pay for things. So we just need to. That's where it all comes down to, is trying to help fund these issues, these services, because it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a while, and it's going to be a very slow road to recovery. But that's the best way. Just like I said, find a good organization that you like working with and get behind them.
Thank you.
Wow.
I have a grandson that was deep in drugs at one time, and I just praise the Lord that he is out of that lifestyle. That he was taking them and selling them. I mean, if he was still doing it, he'd probably be dead today. And I'm just grateful, that he'd come out of it. And it was by God's grace and the law enforcement that did it.
I'm sure that was an awful time for you and
You're not kidding.
in the family. That's why I said anyone that says it's a victimless crime, that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Yep.
The furthest thing. That's a very novel idea and a very novel way of thinking, but it is absolutely not the reality of it, because you went through it. You lived it.
Yeah, you go through hell.
Well, all right.
Thank you.
Again, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to come, and I think it was well worth all the information that we got, and the education we've got today is priceless. So I thank all of our speakers today. Enjoyed all of your presentations, and thank you so much for coming. Everybody, go out and have a good day today. Thank you for
And
coming.
Vicki, we want to thank you for heading this up. Vicki, we want to thank you for pulling this together.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, Tim,
Yeah,
will this be on the church website, the video, or access to it somehow?
I will, it will be on there. I'll put a link.
There are a lot of people gonna see
Yeah.
this.
Good, well, and
Especially
I
if you
hope
start seeing
somebody
it
could
for a
not
friend on
come
Facebook.
today and wanted to be here.